Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner looking to efficiently master the foundation of multi-platform app development, well, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we're putting together a complete, ground-up building blocks guide to mastering the Dart programming language. We're going to take those abstract lines of code and build a really clear, logical structure, completely stripping away the noise so you can get straight to understanding. So, how do you build native apps for mobile, web, and desktop using just one single code base? That's the holy grail of modern development, right? Well, the answer lies in the Flutter framework. But to truly unlock Flutter, you absolutely have to master its underlying language, which is Dart. Dart is literally the ultimate solution, optimized specifically for building gorgeous user interfaces across all these platforms. Honestly, if you master Dart, you kind of master the app world. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap. First, we'll meet the Dart language itself. Second, we'll cover variables, types, and collections. Third, we'll look at functions and control flow. Fourth, we'll tackle classes and object-oriented Dart. And finally, we'll wrap up with futures and data fetching. Let's get to it. Section 1. Meet the Dart language. Let's lay down that first metaphorical brick and introduce the fundamental environment where your code actually lives. So, what is Dart? Well, it's a statically typed language. If you've ever used C# or TypeScript, you're going to feel completely at home here. This just means every variable has to have its own defined type, like a string or an integer. And once it's set, it cannot mysteriously change types on you later, which, trust me, saves you from countless bugs down the road. Dart compiles directly to native machine code for your mobile and desktop apps, or to JavaScript for the web. Now, to kickstart any Dart application, you absolutely require a main function. It's the engine that starts the whole thing up. And the best part? You don't even need to install anything today to follow along. You can test all of these concepts straight in your browser over at dartpad.dev. Section 2. Variables, types, and collections. This is where we learn how to actually gather and structure all our raw data materials. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the sharp contrast between two keywords that seem like they do the exact same thing, final and const. Both of them are used to declare variables that absolutely cannot be changed once they're set. But there's a really crucial difference here. Final is a runtime constant. You use it when you simply don't know the value until the app is actually up and running, like, say, when you're fetching live user data from an API. Const, on the other hand, is a compile time constant. You use this for hard-coded values that are set in stone from the very beginning, like setting a maximum screen width. Using const whenever possible is a massive pro tip because it actually optimizes your app's performance. Building on that, Dart gives us explicit type annotations. So, you can strictly declare a string for the name Mario, an int for the age 25, a double for a decimal, or a bool for true and false. Or, if you want to keep things quick, you can just use var, and Dart is smart enough to figure out or infer the type for you based on whatever value you gave it. Dart also enforces strict null safety. By default, a variable cannot be null, which prevents those massive app-breaking crashes. But if you ever need a variable to temporarily be empty, you just pop a question mark directly after the type declaration. Oh, and when you want to inject these variables directly into a string of text, you use string interpolation. It's super easy. Just drop a $sign right in front of the variable name directly inside the quotes. Now let's break down Dart's collections. First up, lists. These are exactly like arrays. They hold an ordered sequence of data inside square brackets, and they happily allow duplicate values. But then look at sets. Sets use curly braces, they are completely unordered, and their absolute superpower is uniqueness. If you try to add a duplicate Peach or Mario to a set, Dart won't crash, it just safely ignores the duplicate. Finally, we have maps. These also use curly braces, but they hold key-value pairs. It's very much like a dictionary or a JavaScript object, letting you quickly look up specific values using unique keys. Moving right along to Section 3, Functions and Control Flow. We're now equipping you with the tools you need to manipulate all that data and execute some actual logic. So, the crucial point here is understanding how we pass data into our functions. Traditionally, we use positional arguments. If a function expects a name and then an age, you have to pass them in exactly that order. Mix them up, and your app breaks faster than you can say bug fix. But Dart offers named parameters, which are a total game changer. By wrapping your parameters in curly braces, the order you pass them in completely stops mattering. You just tag the argument with its name, like age:25. You can also tag these named parameters with the keyword required or add a question mark to make them optional. This completely solves the headache of passing complex arguments, which, trust me, becomes absolutely vital later when you're dealing with massive Flutter UI widgets. Now, to control the flow of all this data, Dart uses your standard for loops and if statements. Pretty normal stuff. But I want you to consider the .where method. If you know JavaScript's .filter method, you already know exactly how this works. You just attach .where to a list, pass it a condition inside an arrow function, something like where the score is greater than 50, and it iterates through, returning a brand new, perfectly filtered list. It's incredibly clean, and it keeps your code highly readable. Section 4, Classes and Object-Oriented Dart. We are stepping up our architectural game here to draft the actual blueprints of our app using object-oriented programming. Classes are essentially just blueprints for creating your own custom objects. Let's walk through the steps. Say we're building a food delivery app. First, we define a class called menu item, and we give it some properties, maybe a string for the title and a double for the price. Second, we create a constructor. This is a special function that has the exact same name as the class, and it runs the very moment an object is created. We use the syntax this.title to easily grab the incoming data. Finally, step 3, we instantiate the object. Now we can effortlessly create a menu item for veg noodles at $9.99 or a volcano pizza for $12.99. But what if that volcano pizza needs some extra properties, like a list of toppings that our veg noodles simply don't need? Well, we use class inheritance. We can create a pizza class that extends the menu item class. Boom, it instantly inherits the title and the price. When we build the pizza's constructor, we use the super keyword to conveniently pass that title and price straight up to the parent menu item class. On top of that, using the override annotation, we can completely customize built-in methods. For instance, you can override Dart's default toString method so that when you print your pizza object, it actually outputs a beautifully formatted menu string instead of just throwing out generic code jargon. And this brilliantly illustrates one of Dart's slightly more advanced but completely essential features, generics. Generics are represented by angle brackets and a capital T, and they allow a single class to work strictly with multiple different data types. So for example, if you create a generic collection class to hold items, using that T allows the class to definitively know later on that it's holding a list of menu items specifically, rather than just a bunch of dynamic unknown data. This keeps the class highly reusable while giving you really powerful code completion and error checking right in your editor. Finally, Section 5, Futures and Data Fetching. It is time to connect our strictly structured Dart app to the wild, unpredictable outside world. See, when you request data from the internet, it doesn't just arrive instantly. In Dart, we handle this delay using futures. And if you've used JavaScript or Python, these are exactly like promises. When the request is made, a future is created in an uncompleted state. Now, the app doesn't just freeze up. It actually keeps running perfectly fine while that async task hums along in the background. Finally, the future reaches a completed state where it either resolves into the data you ask for or, throws an error if something went horribly wrong. Now, to actually get your data out of that future, you've got two choices. You can use the traditional .then method, which simply chains a callback function that fires only when the data finally arrives, or as a much cleaner alternative, you can use the async and await syntax. By simply marking a function as async, you tell Dart to literally await the future. It securely pauses the execution of that one specific block of code until the future completes, which lets you store the result directly into a standard variable. Honestly, it makes everything read much more like normal synchronous code. Let's systematically step through what this looks like in a real HTTP network request. First, Dart has an awesome package manager called pub.dev. We import the external HTTP package right from there. Second, we take our API web address and securely format it using the URI.https method. Third, we actually fetch the data by passing that URI into http.get, making sure to use the await keyword we just learned about. Finally, APIs return data as a massive text string called JSON. So we use Dart's built-in Dart convert library and its JSON decode function to flawlessly translate that clunky JSON string into a structured, readable Dart nap. And from there, we just map those keys straight into our custom classes. And just like that, the whole shebang comes together. You have conquered the core architecture of the Dart language. You now understand typing, control flow, object-oriented structuring, and asynchronous data fetching. Which leaves us with one final exciting question to wrap up this explainer. Now that you actually possess the essential Dart building blocks, what are you going to construct in your very first multi-platform Flutter app? The tools are officially in your hands. Thank you so much for learning efficiently with us today, and I will catch you in the next explainer.